So I'll briefly talk about the setup before I get into what I'm doing in the video and how I'm going through the process of taking the picture. I've got a 2-light setup. Main light here on the almost the side just to get some texture to all the detail and Joker and Justice's ensemble, his wardrobe. I've got another lume cube here just fitted with a grid. It's going to light the bottom down here. I've put a fill card over here to bounce a little light back into Joker's right side, camera left. Piece of black foam core that I just hot glued his foot to. And I'll repaint the foam core when I'm done, no big deal. Batarang from Batman. He's kind of taunting Batman. I got your shit, homie. What are you going to do about it? As I dance through the fog. Anyway. And then I've got a little diorama back here. Back here, this is not so important. I've got a shallow depth of field, and this isn't so important that I get it in crisp, sharp focus. I don't want that. I don't want anything really competing with the subject. So I've shot this at f4 with some Christmas lights behind to give sort of a neon kind of look. Something kind of cuckoo, to match his dance. Got my fog machine. Pretty basic stuff I use often. A couple of these, or one of these little tabletop tripods for the lume cubes. And that's it, guys. So I don't want to talk too much because some people don't like all the talking, but I feel I need to talk and set up the sort of set up the shot before I get into the voiceover. So anyway, there it is. That's the set. You watch me put it together. It's real quick as we go through the process, and watch how I end up with the photos that you see. So here I'm just grabbing a few dial panels out of my collection. I'm not exactly sure yet where I want to go with this, so I'm kind of just making it up on the fly, which is what I usually do. No matter how organized I look, I just make it up as I go. But anyway, I get out some stone panels and I try to decide if I want to use that archway there that I made, and I don't like it. It's not really scaled too well for this Fig Arts figure that I have for Joker Injustice. So what I do here is I grab another dial panel for the ground, and all this is XPS pink foam, and I've just spray painted it. Now the only reason I'm going to put two of these together, not because it's all going to be in frame, but because I don't want there to be white table where I compose the image, and so I just use the other piece as a little bit of overlap in case there's some I don't want table to show through. Anyway, I pulled out this other dial panel back here, sort of an industrial kind of look, and I am only interested in the two windows on this dial panel. So I slide them over to line Joker up in the middle of them, and I grab some sewing pins and I just go ahead and push them through the foam to secure the pieces to each other so they don't flop around and fall down as I move around the set, which is what usually happens to me if I don't use pins. So that being said, I'm just kind of walking around looking at what I think is going to line up right through the lens and what's going to look good. So I slide the whole bottom portion over a little bit. The entire part of this dial from the left window over is not even going to be in frame. So I'm only really interested in the part directly behind Joker, and that's what I'm lining up right here. And now I'm going to go grab my camera, and I'm just going to look at it really quickly through the lens to make sure that I'm on the right track, and only what I want to see in the viewfinder is going to line up with what's on the table. And it takes me a second to fumble because I got a new camera and I'm used to a actual viewfinder, and these mirrorless have electronic viewfinders, so you put your eye to the viewfinder and you don't see anything until you turn it on. So anyway, I'm over here with Joker, and we're just kind of repositioning him so he doesn't have so much of a lean to him, and he's a little more vertical. I'm going to put some of these little laughing mouth pieces with teeth around his feet, and I've hot glued him to the bottom of this little bit of dab of hot glue on the bottom of his foot. And this XPS foam, it could just spray paint you a piece of this. Don't stand too close to it, but put some distance between you and the spray paint can and the board or the piece of foam, and just spray paint it. And you'd make you some quick ground, roll a little aluminum foil ball over it, and texture it up, man, and you got a good piece of blacktop. At any rate, I'm looking for. I thought it was going to be a good idea to get I have these big eyes and big teeth. I thought it would look kind of cool to get it out and put it behind him and add it to the scene. It's kind of a larger version of the ones that are there by his feet. And in my head, it looked and sounded and, like it would be a good idea. But as you'll see here in a second, once I put it down in the set behind him, I just feel it's too large. It just really competes with him, who I want to be the subject of the photo, and not the big, teeth and eyes behind him. I just think it would draw too much attention away from him, and I don't want competing stars. The idea is you have a star of the set, and then you have supporting actors, and with two figures so large, they're going to compete for your eye attention, and you're going to kind of just wander around the frame with your eye, and I don't like the way that looks. And ultimately, like I say, I look through my camera again to see if I think I might like it, and I just don't. So scratch that, and we'll take that piece back out of the set and just continue on with Joker being the main focus of the shoot here. And I'm going to plug these Christmas lights in, and what I want to do is I want to bring some color through those back windows, and I'll grab some stick pins and I will pin them to the back of the window in a way that kind of balances the ball out. I don't want too much light in one window and not enough in the other, so I'm just kind of grabbing some pins and spreading the ball of light, or the strand of lights, out behind the windows, so it kind of evens them out. And another option that I was going to go with is just not have the bulbs directly in the window, but just below it, so that the glow, the multicolor glow, comes up through the window, and you just see the color glow, and it looks more neon than actually looking through the window and seeing the light source itself. I'm going to grab, I have these little accessory pieces that come with these figures, so I want to grab a batarang from Batman, and that's what I want to put in Joker's hand. He comes with these little playing cards and stuff, and I see a lot of pictures with those, and I just wanted to be a little bit different. He's dancing and he's taunting and he's gloating over the fact that he's got something, a souvenir from his enemy, and I kind of wanted to go with that little sarcastic kind of evil bit of joy, bit of victory, short-lived as it may be. I'm switching out Joker's hands now, one of his hands, to one that will hold the batarang. And this figure comes with, I forget how many sets of hands, but there's probably 2 or 3 sets of hands in there. And this particular one that I put on is one that has a pinching form to it, so that you can slide stuff in between the fingertips there. So we're going to just make a couple fine-tune adjustments to Joker. I want to figure out where I want to put his hand as he falls over on me. His foot is still glued, but he articulates in so many points that if too much weight is on one point, he's gonna move. But anyway, so what I'm looking for now is where I want to put that hand with the batarang. I want to decide what looks good and move his arm into position for the shot. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of adjusting the batarang just in his hand, the turn of his wrist, the bend of his elbow, the height of his arm with this batarang. And I decide ultimately on him having the batarang just below his face, like he's looking over the batarang, kind of gloating, so that you can still see his yellow tooth smile in the background, and it doesn't block his face. So once again, I'm just going to go ahead and look through my viewfinder after I turn the camera on and make sure that it doesn't cover his face too much, and I don't think that it will be a problem when I light it. And here I've got my lume cubes set up. I'm getting my tripod put into position and leveling everything out, and I'm going to go ahead and take my first look through the viewfinder with my lume cubes turned on and the Christmas lights behind the dial panel and everything kind of almost just where I want it. I just want to double check, get my camera in the right position, the right distance from the diorama set that I want to photograph. I've got an extension tube on this 200mm Canon 2.8 lens, and what that does is it allows me to shorten my minimum focusing distance so that I don't have to have the camera so far away to accommodate the normal function of the lens. It just allows me to get closer and fill the frame more with the Joker and give it a little bit, larger than life look in the frame, filling the frame without having to get close to the subject. So here I'm going to go in and focus in live view, and you can see the back of the camera here. I'm just in manual focus mode. Actually, I'm in automatic focus mode, but I'm manually focusing, and then I rotate down under here and flip my switch so that the camera doesn't automatically try to regain focus, and I stay in manual focus. So anyway, I'm just scrolling through the back of the camera here on the electronic viewfinder and making sure that I'm in focus, his face is sharp, and that I'm happy with the way that looks. Once I gain focus, then I just move on. Now that I've got focus, the next thing I want to do is make sure my settings are right. And I'm just going through the back of the camera, and I'm going to find what I think, from experience is a good place to start with the aperture that I want to use. I'm always at ISO 100. But the aperture in this case, I initially start out at f8, and I'm going through the back here, and I'm just going to adjust my shutter speed in order to give me a proper exposure with the way that I have the lights set up at f8. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking f8 though is going to be a little more stopped down than I want to be, and it's going to put the background in a little more focus than I want. And you'll see here in a minute, I could edit this out, but I want to show you guys the process. I'm taking the photo here. You can see the red light flashing, the timer counting down on the camera. Once I take the exposure, we're going to look at the back of the camera here, and I'm going to show you what I find. And this is just the first shot. So you just want to find you a place to start, and then you can dial down your adjustments there. You can turn down your lights, or you can adjust your shutter speed. And here what I'm looking at is Joker's face. It is white. I want to be careful not to overexpose it. And here it's really bright. His face is really hot. And the white teeth on those little figures are really bright and hot. So what I decide here is my lights are going to be, they're too bright. I need to turn those lights down, and I'm going to at the same time go from f8 down to f4. And I already know if my lights are too bright at f8, they're certainly going to be way too bright at f4 because I'm opening the aperture up. So I'm doing two things at once here. I'm going to turn my lights down with the LumeCube app, and I'm going to take my camera and put it down to f4, which opens the aperture up a lot wider. So my lights have to be turned down quite a ways here. And that's what I'm doing. I'm adjusting my shutter speed, my lights, and opening my aperture up, because Joker's face and the white parts of the scene, like the teeth in those little mouths and Joker's face, are way too bright. We don't want those hot. So now that I've got an exposure on his face and the brightest parts of the scene on the subject, I move on to take another shot and make sure, as I scroll through the image here on the camera back, you can see the brightest parts of the scene have detail. They're lit in a way that I like, and I just get an overall quick view on the back of the camera of Joker and make sure that I am ready to move on to the next part. And what I want to do here is I'm going to go ahead and plug in my fog machine. Since everything has to be right before I do the fog, it doesn't make any sense to try to do fog at the same time I'm trying to check exposure and focus. It's a process. You start out with composition. You start out with posing, composition, focus, lighting, exposure, and you build on the process, in that order. I do. You build on it how you want, but that's how I start my process and go each time. So the fog machine is last. Now that I've got everything dialed in the way that I want, we're going to wait for the fog machine to warm up, and I might fire off another couple exposures just to make sure that before I fill my studio with this fog, I've got the exposure the way that I want it. Because what happens too with the lume cubes or any light source that you use, once that fog comes out onto the scene, it acts like a softbox and it brightens things up also. So I take another shot and I adjust my lume cube on the right side there, which you can see with the diffuser, and I just dial that down a little bit, and then I make one more adjustment with my shutter speed. I'm fine where I'm at. I can fix that in post, but if you can get it right in camera, get it as best you can in camera, and then I use post-production from there. But at any rate, here comes some fog. It's rolling out, and I'm just going to shoot a few blasts of fog out there until I get a look that I think works well with the scene. I don't want it covering his face, and I don't want it in places that's gonna obscure the details I want visible. So, and that's what I do here. I just go ahead and blast off some fog, take a few shots, examine them on the camera back, find one that I like, and ultimately that's what I end up sticking with, and I'll edit and post. But a couple things to be mindful here too. The fog, when I use it, I put it behind the subject. I shoot the fog in from the back, and if I can bounce it off of something, even better. Because this stuff comes out fast, and you can't really control it. So I want the fog to bounce off the back of the wall where the lights are, and that will create a nice soft hazy bunch of colorful mist. And then I take another shot that you guys can't see where I aim the fog at the ground so that it creates a mist of fog on the ground by Joker's feet. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you were able to take something away from this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.